guys, this is Chantal from the Veterans Empowered Through STEM program. Just want to go over a federal resume presentation just to go in depth about the ins and outs of applying for a job on USA Jobs. It can be daunting. If you've ever tried to apply for a federal job, it's a pain in the butt. So hopefully this will make it a little bit easier and kind of break down the differences between a federal resume and a civilian resume and how important it is to follow the format that I'm going to share with you. Okay, so first things that you need to do is to create a profile in USA Jobs. There is a video at the end of this presentation that will show you how to navigate. So you definitely want to create a profile first, and then you're going to use the resume builder to create a master resume and then customize a resume for each job that you apply to. It's really important that each position that you find that you're interested in applying, the description needs to match exactly what you put in your resume. So definitely tailor your resume for each job. Some things that you want to have on hand prior to getting started is some important documents that you're going to need to upload to your profile. So that way, each time you apply for a job, it's as simple as just attaching that file instead of trying to find it each time. So your DD-214, your proof of service, is number one. And then any educational transcripts. Some different jobs use education as a substitute for experience or in addition to experience. So you'll want to be able to have those on hand to show that you have the education required for that position. And then lastly, you'll want to upload your SF-15, which is basically proof that you have veterans preference points. And we'll go into the point system a little bit later in the presentation. One of the most important things is you need to read the entire job posting, and usually there's a questionnaire for each job posting. The questionnaire basically evaluates your ability to do the job. So it's a good preview of what to expect and if you qualify for that position. So make sure you read everything because there's specific things that they want you to address in your resume, and then the knowledge, skills, and required abilities are listed in that job description, so you can take those keywords directly from that and work it into your resume. When you're navigating through USA Jobs and you are finding a bunch of different jobs that you're interested in, just save them as a preference list, and that way you can access them later and create a resume for each of those positions. Another thing, make sure you're reading the GS levels to understand the salary and qualification requirements. So you could be reading this job description, that sounds awesome, and then you go in and it's like a GS-14 position. Well, unless you had like 10 years of experience in that particular field or you were a major doing something exactly like that in the military, you're probably not going to qualify if you were an E4 with no relevant experience outside of your degree. So just keep in mind to have an expectation of what the salary is for that particular pay scale. Made it funny. Personalize a resume for every job? Yeah, you have to. It sucks, but it's the reality of things. So, all right. What you need to have in your resume and some tips to make it a little bit easier. Federal resume, in contrast to a civilian resume, should have 3 to 5 pages. I know, and if we've talked before about applying for a civilian job, I say don't ever do more than 2 pages. Do that, but not when you're applying for a federal job. It needs to be 3 to 5 pages. Don't do bullet points, again, which is kind of the opposite of a regular resume. Don't do bullet points unless you're outlining major accomplishments. It's going to be more of a long paragraph form. That's why it ends up being 3 to 5 pages. This third bullet point is super important. So if you read through the job description, most of them will say that the employer, location, position title, start and end date, and your average hours worked per week is a requirement to be put on your resume. So you won't even get past the entry level of, you won't even get past the first rounds of having your application looked at if you don't have that in your resume. It's super important. So make sure that you put that in your resume. And the resume builder will prompt you to do that. So just, it's made that way for a specific reason, so use it. Education, so put your schools attended, the degrees that you acquired. If you did not get a degree from that particular institution, don't bother putting it on there. It's just going to take up room that's not necessary. Tips. Okay, so a real person actually looks at your resume on this federal site, on USA Jobs. So keep that in mind when you're writing it. Build a master. So you are going to be tailoring a resume for each job that you apply to, but you do want to have a master resume that encompasses all of the work that you've done. And this will, be a reference for you to take from when you customize your resume. However, you can make that master resume searchable. So, a federal recruiter is looking on there, and he or she could find some relevant skills that are match up with your master resume for a job that you might not even have thought to apply for. So definitely making it searchable is only going to benefit you in the long run. We already talked about tailoring resumes for each job. Do remember that there's a cap of 5. So have a good idea of the types of jobs that you're applying to. So that way, you're not going to need more than 5 custom resumes. Huge, huge, huge. Use numbers and data to demonstrate an impact. So you saved, $1.5 million by switching to this process, or you increase efficiency in this program by this much percentage. Stats are huge, and they really are looking for that. And sell yourself. A lot of veterans that I know feel really uncomfortable when talking themselves up, but this is not the time to be modest. This is the time for you to outline everything that you did that would make you an attractive employee or attractive candidate. So do not be shy. Make yourself sound awesome. Okay, getting past the referral process. So my personal experience, this was the hardest. I would apply for jobs and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have this great resume, though I did not use this format, so lesson learned. And they would submit it, and then I would never get referred for an interview. It was really, really frustrating. But if you follow these guidelines, your chances of getting referred are going to be a lot higher. So we've already talked about this, but you need to write your resume to get the referral status. Use the keywords that directly reflect the duties and responsibilities that are listed in that particular job description that you're applying for. Don't copy and paste it, but use the keywords and then just articulate how your previous experience matches that. Give examples of it. Pay attention to the job posting dates. So you'll see this in the video later, but at the bottom of the job description, they'll have an open date of when applications can be. Sometimes it's only a week. And to be honest, most of the time when they're only listing a job for a week is that they already have somebody internally that they've decided that they're going to hire, but legally they have to post the job. So I don't want you to waste a ton of time applying for a job that only has a week opening, because you're not going to get it. 2-3 weeks, they're looking for immediate hire. So you would want to get your application in. A lot of these positions have 6-month windows because the process is a lot, especially if it's a security clearance thing, background check. I mean, it takes a while to vet all the candidates, and usually there's a couple round of interviews after the referral process. So the federal government does not move fast, and I'm sure you guys all know that. And also, when it shows the closing date, that's the last, you have till midnight on that closing date to submit the application. So please keep in mind, don't expect to hear something back very quickly if you applied and the closing date is 2 days later. or the closing date is 6 months later. You're not going to hear anything back until they've got all the candidates applied and that closing date is over. Make sure you include all the documents requested. Again, that is in the job description, especially if you're using your education to fill a requirement listed. You want to have everything in there, because if you're missing the veterans preference points, or you're missing, you know, your documentation with your transcripts or showing that you have your DD-214, that you have military experience, if that's not on there, they're not going to be like, oh, hey, sorry to bother you, but you know, you forgot to attach documents. They don't care, so make sure it's in there. So I will be saying this probably throughout the presentation, but I figured I've been throwing acronyms at you the whole time and we can explain them. So KSAs are knowledge, skills, and abilities. That's usually the first section of the job description. It'll list the KSAs needed for that job. So that's what you will use as a reference to prove that you have those abilities in your resume. STAR and CSAR are an acronym for really good methods of how to write your resume. So, and this is also really helpful for interviews. So STAR is situation, task, action, result. So what was the situation you were in? What was the task that you had to accomplish? The action is how you accomplished it. And then obviously what were the results? CSAR, challenge, context, action, results. It's basically the same thing, but just a different acronym. Really useful tools for resume building, and then also for interview questions, because then you can give them an example of how you utilize that skill and what the successful result of that was. And a lot of hiring managers base their questions, their interview questions, off of these methods. So it's something to keep in mind. And we did touch on this, but yes, GS scales have their own competencies. So sometimes the job description will list that there are multiple positions. You could have it from like GS7 to GS8. You could have it from GS9. And they'll have one for like GS10 through GS12, something like that. And then there will be particular competencies required for those. So one might not require you know, a bachelor's degree, and the other one will. So keep that in mind when you're applying. Okay, we did talk about the assessment questions and preference points. So this is an example of a questionnaire. Oh, shouldn't have done that. We can move on while this is loading. Okay, so this is an example of a questionnaire, an assessment questionnaire. They're just going to give you a preview most of the time until you actually apply for the job. So when you're scrolling through the description, it'll have a link for a questionnaire, but it won't actually be all of it. But it's a good way to assess if you are like a qualified applicant. So, okay, do you claim veterans preference, which we will go into, active duty service member. This is just basically standard questions to see if you're eligible. Scroll down. Okay. So like this is like a land management position. And so here are some of the questions that kind of show if you are eligible. Are you a current or former land management agency employee and served under a time limited appointment for a period? I mean, you just got to read all these things. If you were previously a federal service member, things like that. Are you currently with the Department of Defense? You know, so just go through these conditions of employment, making sure that you meet all of this. I was wrong, this is not a land management position, sorry. It's a supervisor or human resources specialist. So this is an example of the assessment. So Do you have 1 year of specialized service equivalent to the next lower grade level of GS11? And then you're like, oh, no, I don't. And you click that, it's probably gonna not boot you, but you probably won't move on to the next level if that's what the job requires. So this was a really good example of trying to figure out before you waste your time customizing your resume for this particular position, if you're even qualified. Review workload metrics to evaluate work performance of junior personnel. Okay, well, honestly, most of us in the military have had junior personnel underneath us that we've had to assess with marks or particular tasks. All right, so I'm good. But this is just a good example of what you need to know, so we can get at that. Okay, here's the preference points. So you get 5 points if you were active duty and you were got an honorable discharge. That's already listed on your member 4 copy of your DD-214. Automatically 5 points. 10 points is needed. Well, 10 points, you would use your SF-15, which shows that you have a disability rating with the VA. And if you have 10% or more, you qualify. You just fill out the SF-15, and then you attach that. So now you have a total of 10-point preferences because you're a veteran and you have a disability rating. So it puts you at a higher mark. There's also veteran spouse points. So if you're a military spouse, that gives you an extra boost too. And then the points are added to your overall applicant score, which is based on your resume, your questionnaire, and your points. And that's basically the synopsis of it. The video will cover quite a bit, and you guys can always email me at either UHWO VETS at hawaii.edu or CNEWELL at hawaii.edu if you have any questions. And I'm going to go ahead and start the video. I will be quiet. Okay, we're going to do a quick USA Jobs tutorial. You go to usajobs.gov. You'll be prompted for your logon information, or if you don't have an account, you'll have to go ahead and create an account. Creating an account's easy. Asks you all the basic stuff. Name, address. I've already created my account, so the next thing they'll do once your account's created is you're going to be prompted to put your profile. You'll have to do this before you can apply for any jobs. The different hiring paths you're eligible for. It'll prompt you to which ones you can choose, whether or not you have military or federal service, your education, and if you'd like to list organizations, languages, or references. So when you're uploading your resume, you absolutely want to use the resume builder. So you can actually have up to 5 resumes, as you can see right here. Just the repeating stuff in here. Your resume, and then you can customize each resume based on the job. So that's the thing that you want to make sure that you apply for. And then for your documentation, you'll want to add your transcripts if you're using your education as experience. That's what we talked about. It's just how you upload your documents. And your SF-15 for your 10-point veterans preference. So super important to have all these because you'll upload them to each job that you have. I'm going to stop this real quick and just make sure you know when you do upload your DD-214, you have to redact your social security number. And if you will not get your 10-point veterans preference or your 5-point veterans preference if you don't have your DD-214 or SF-15 on there. Okay, preferences. This is just what you're looking for in a position, whether or not you're willing to travel or relocate, the type of jobs that you're looking for in terms of part-time, full-time, telework. So you'll make sure all these are saved. And then we'll go ahead and look for a job. So let's see. So the agency
job title, the location that you're looking for. I've already looked up a specific job for this tutorial.
And also, I'm going to post this video on its own, so you can have access to this at a later time.
So just a good example of a job position, you can see that it ranges all the way from GS5 to GS15. And one thing to pay attention to is closing date. Just keep in mind that you will not hear anything back until that closing date. So it's
After that closing date, actually.
likely filling a lot of different positions. That's why it's such a long closing date. You can see the various locations that are listed on here. Okay, now for the important stuff. The summary and responsibilities is really what you want to pay attention to make sure that your resume reflects those. Your responsibilities, what I usually do is highlight these and put them on a Word document, so that way I can have the Word doc on one screen and my resume on the other screen, so I can change the language and articulate how my experience reflects these, like research, identify, analyze program requirements. So I'll find an experience that I had in my previous job history that shows that I have that knowledge, skills, and abilities. Just keep scrolling down, requirements, you can read these on your own. Qualifications, so this is something else to really consider too. You need to know what level you're applying for. So it's really important.
I already talked about this, so I might skip over it. But this is what I talked about when it comes to knowing what position you qualify for. And so they'll actually break it down. And you can see that it'll break down GS4, GS5, GS7, and it'll tell you if you are eligible. And so like you can see for GS7 that you have to have, 1 year specialized experience of at least GS5 or 1 year of graduate level education of superior academic achievement, which I believe is like over a 3.5. And then, or you can have a year of experience in combination, so like in combination with a bachelor's degree, plus you have a year of experience. So just, you got to read through it.
Important to read that. For example,
So we'll skip through that.
You can also
already said all
get
that.
higher in being a company, have 1 year, the superior academic achievement.
Long-winded.
If you're doing a part that I add to my Word document to
There we go.
double check my resume is this
This
knowledge,
part.
skills, and abilities section.
Very important.
So again, you'll want to reflect in your resume that you know how to do all of these things, and specifically write your resume to showcase that. This is also a good example of what is going to be in the questionnaire that you will get when you are trying to apply for this job. They will have examples to really discredit you. If you think you know that you have skills in analyzing, planning, organization, and coordinating work, and you put you're an expert on your...
I'm going to talk over myself, but what I'm talking about here is the knowledge, skills, and abilities is going to directly reflect the questionnaire, right? So if your resume is written that you have all these like experiences that are like awesome and you're the perfect person qualified for the job, when you do the assessment and you're like clicking like, oh yes, I know this, or no, I don't know this, they will compare the questionnaire evaluation to your resume. And if your skills don't match what you put in the evaluation, they can actually go change your answers to reflect what you've put on your resume. So you really want everything to match up.
Questionnaire and your resume.
I'm saying all of what I just said.
It doesn't have to.
So I'm not going to put you guys through all this.
And that your responses to the questionnaire will be.
That's what I just said.
Extra on there. Like I said, get your questionnaire, resume, transcripts. If you have any certifications, you want to include And veterans, you want your DD-214, and if you have a disability rating, you'll definitely want to put in your SF-15 to be considered for that 10-point preference. And you can go down and review their benefits, how to apply. You can look at a preview questionnaire, which we went over in the presentation, and you'll be prompted to apply on this right-hand side when you go back to the job description. This is important. This is the hiring manager's contact information. You probably won't actually get the hiring manager, but if you really want to make sure that they have all your information correctly, you can always follow up with them. And that is the basics of it. So we can go ahead and go back to the very top here. And so I've already actually applied for this position just to show you guys. And we would say continue, it'll just have an apply button. And when you go there, it'll prompt you to add everything. So you would upload your resume, acknowledge that you review your resume, put in personal information, and then in this, I had already uploaded my SF-15 to DD-214 and my transcripts. And so basically, once you continue on with this, you would go to the agency site, and then you would be prompted to complete the questionnaire. And then you'll have officially applied for the position. Once you do apply for the position, down here is where you'll be able to see.
I'm going to stop it right there because that's basically it. Once you've applied for the job, it'll show you your status of where you're at in progress. And then if you do get referred, this will change to referred or rejected. So that is it. So let's get out of here.
Your status.
All right. So I am going to be doing a civilian resume. Stop share. I am going to be doing a civilian resume workshop within the next couple of weeks, which is probably what most people are interested in. And I'm just fine-tuning it and trying to make sure that everything that you would need is in there. I'd love to do these in person. I'm trying to encourage everybody to stay active with the VETS program. And because I can't help you in person, you can call me anytime if you have questions. I'll be in the office or working from home, but I'm still definitely available. So long-winded, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some out of it. And I did record this so that way you can access it at any time. And then I will be sending out an email in our newsletter with links for the YouTube video for the navigation site, as well as, to keep you updated for our next workshop. So hope you guys have a great day.